What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. I am your host, Trinity. Thank you all so much for being here today. Sorry, running a few minutes late. Just if you guys ever, if you guys are creators or anything out there, you probably know how OBS works. It can be a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for being here today for this chat. Got a very special guest with me today. I'm going to talk about some comic books and just all kinds of different things. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to YoungRippa59. I'm sure you all know who he is. You can go ahead and say what's up to everybody there in the chat.
Hey, what's going on, man? And again, I do appreciate you having me. I feel like this is overdue.
Yeah, definitely, man. Been meaning to get with you for a long time, and then finally the other day, I actually just said it on air in front of everybody. I'm like, okay, I'm in a position now where I actually have to come through because I told everybody I was going to do this.
For sure.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where we really want to start out. Obviously, I started following you through the comic books. You know, kind of just I started a YouTube channel. I actually started my channel just making theories and everything, and then I started diving into things more here on YouTube, and from there finding other creators and different things like that to just follow and everything. And I think I'm not for sure exactly when it was I started following you, but I know it was definitely through searching for comic book content here on YouTube, and it may have very well been searching through and finding you through Black Widow, which was a comic
hmm
book I was reading,
hmm
and trying to find other creators out there who were talking about, and you were definitely one of the top ones amongst the list.
hmm Yeah, man, that was yeah, and it's funny how we all, as comic book content creators, stumble across obviously each other and sort of having those like-minded interests and so forth. Because that's how I stumbled across a lot of other guys was reading certain comic books and then wanted to get other people's like input on it, like to see if I love it or I hate it. Or the other people that where are they at? No, do they have opposite opinions on me? It's stuff like that because it's always cool to see what other people's perspective is. Certainly when it comes to a more like I guess recent and modern comic book and just comics that are being put out today because it seems to be a lot more polarizing than what it's ever been. So it's always interesting to see what people's thoughts are on them.
Yeah, and that's funny because I follow recently after I followed you and I just started getting into more of the comic book community and meeting a lot of other creators out there who are just average guys like me talking about comic books and things like that and just kind of sharing their love of it. And then I find you who, I mean, you talk about a lot more things out there than just comic books.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of drawn to that too, because, I don't really get too deep into politics, but lately it seems like that, politics and everything is kind of spilling over into pretty much
Absolutely.
every single medium, really. I mean, it's always been in music,
Yeah.
obviously in movies and everything, but it seems like even recently it just started spilling more into comic books.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I would argue, or I'll more so make the argument that I don't know, comic book to me, comic books at least was one of the last mediums that were available to a lot of us that could at least people that were among different political bases, different political affiliation, could get something out of the book. So you could have people that were on the same side, on opposite sides, and so forth, that could enjoy a lot of the books because the writing it was something for everybody, and there never was really like a lot of the writing didn't feel like it was beating you over the head. In the words, Stan Lee would say he wouldn't try to do. And I think with more stories coming out, and you're having that younger generation, folks my age, right?
Hmm.
That are starting to write these books, and everybody is a critic. Everybody wants to be know everything about everything when it comes to politics, and everybody wants to wear it on their sleeves. So it's just a natural crossover. It was a natural thing that was going to happen as these people started to become more with the rise of social media, and then as these people started to become, of age to where they were writing a lot of these comics, their political affiliation started to more so bleed into the comic books. And I think that's when you saw that it became more political than it's ever been. The comic book culture, and this is why a lot of people are trying to just fight it off because it does. It was, it's just one of the last things standing. It's not to say that there hadn't been political slants among different comic books or anything like that, because it absolutely has in the past, but not to the degree to where you felt like it was just somebody's personal ideology just being tossed onto a book or into a narrative of a storyline in which it had characters acting like you don't expect them to act and just all sorts of weird stuff like that. So it was one of those things, and I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated now because yes, it's been one of the last things that got infiltrated, if you will, with that where everything's so political. Everybody thinks that they have to put their personal political and social preference into their comic book.
Right. And yeah, it's pretty, I don't know, it's almost hilarity seeing how much this, like, it seems like politics is just really affecting everything. I mean, I guess it kind of always has, but just seeing how it's affecting just everything, just not even in just the art itself now, but it's so, I guess you would say, like, lazily written. It's just so on the nose, and just
Hmm.
it's just so
Yep.
they're blatantly obvious, and that's, and really, I mean, it's mostly from one side, but other people from the other side, it seems like they take a different route in getting their messages out and things like that. And we see, like, even like in the comic industry, we got offshoots and everything, like Comics Gate and different things like that
Yep.
coming about. Different people and trying to do their own thing, and just like there is in films, there's people out there who are smaller movie makers, creators, and everything like that, who are still doing their
Hmm.
own thing within smaller, just smaller studios.
Yeah.
And I mean, is that kind of? Do you think that that's maybe the future of how where everything's going to be going with all that?
I do. I don't think that there'll be a time to where those creators will maybe eclipse um, or surpass is more the proper word what we think of with Marvel and the DCs of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's going to be some stories, some characters that slip through the cracks, and I will say that Marvel and maybe the DCs of the world will have only themselves to blame, uh, and it'll be because people just were looking for an alternative. And they're incentivizing it. They're incentivizing it by again making these sorts of stories because you're giving people an incentive to compete with you, and that's what happened. That's exactly what happened when you mentioned like the comics gates of the world and all these different offshoots, and people wanted to make their own books. That's why, you know what I mean? Because they saw the characters that they grew up in love and the direction that they were taking is not preferable. So they're like, why don't I try my own thing? So I think it's going to be very, very, very difficult to pass those guys up ever, just considering the pool and piles of money that they're sitting on, and the characters in terms of legacy, they just have really just first use, right? So these characters have been around forever. However, it doesn't mean that they have to stay as dominant at the top as they have been in the last decades. And again, that's going to be because a lot of these people are just they're alternatives. They're creating alternatives, and people are like, okay, not only do you have those sides of people that want to create, you have those sides of people that just are now looking for other material because they don't like the direction that some of their current comic books are going. So I do think it's a future in a sense that there are going to be alternatives, and I really think within the next couple of years you're going to see comic book characters that cross over well into live action and TV, film, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even cartoons that aren't of the Marvels and DCs. And I think a lot of that is going to stem from the fact that just people are looking for alternatives. And I think that's all it really takes. And what I'm hoping is just, from a capitalist standpoint, is that sort of competition existing incentivizes Marvel and DC themselves to get on track. You know what I mean? Because they'll see that there's other people that are, again, they're slipping through the cracks. And there's like, you, as a competitor, you got to pay attention to that. You got to say, all right, well, people are liking this. Is they're in the same sort of niche. They're in the same category that I'm in. Why are people flocking towards this character, or why are people flocking towards this story? And if they can actually see it, and if hopefully the guys over there are at least smart enough and they don't have their head so far up their behinds that they're like, well, it's not our fault. Maybe they'll then realize that, okay, well, people are going there because our content, it's a content problem that we have. And I think that's the part that a lot of guys over at Marvel don't understand. For example, is that it's a content issue, right? And they won't admit that. They're too arrogant. They're just way too arrogant to admit, okay, well, maybe the books that we're putting out, the people that we are getting to write the books, maybe shouldn't be writing the books. Or maybe we should have our editors actually reeling some of these guys in and getting them on track, keeping them on track. Maybe we're putting out too many books. You know what I mean? Like that. It's got to be some sort of self-reflection. And I just don't see that happening until you get a lot of competing firms that force their hand. You know what I mean? Because at that point, if people are then, instead of spending their dollar on them, are spending their dollar on people that are smaller, have less money, less of I don't know, following and so forth. And because of social media, it's allowing us to do this. It's allowing people like myself, like you of the world, other creators of the world. 10 years, we really couldn't do this. You know what I mean? Whereas to now, you get people, and that's what happened out of the Comics Gate things. You got people that had never written books in their life, that wouldn't never had the platform more so to maybe put a successful book out, are doing it and making a killing off of it. You know what I mean? So believe it or not, as more people do that, doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't even really matter what side of the political aisle they're on. As more people do that, I think that it's going to force DC and Marvel's hand if they want to stay at the top and maintain that gap, because all it takes, it happens fast, man. In the age of social media, you can think of just the amounts of different products, even social media platforms that you've seen come and go over the years. It happens fast. All it happens is for a group of guys to have one successful character, and then one turns to two, turns to three, turns to four, and you have big, companies that want to invest in it. All right, why don't we give your show an animated Netflix series or something like that? It happens fast, man. It really does happen fast. So I think once something like that happens, we'll start seeing some changes from the big two specifically.
Right, and and that kind of makes me wonder. There's, I mean, obviously, there's the big two out there, between DC and Marvel. But even back as far as the '90s and everything, Image Comics
Image, yeah,
came out, and then there's just all these other different
Dark
publishers
Horse.
out there. And sometimes I kind of wonder, like, even with a thing like a Comics Gate, like, I wonder how, like, is it a viable solution for any of those kind of like creators, like some of the bigger guys out there, to maybe try to put together their own publishing company to somewhat start stories and move forward with more independent creators?
I think that, I mean, personally, yeah, I think those guys, like the Images of the world, they do at least have a leg up on the competition of the guys, maybe in comparison to Comics Gate or something like that. I think if it were them, and I think that, again, that's where it's gonna a lot of changes are gonna happen as well. Fortunately, I don't get to talk about it as much, or I don't talk about it as much, because that's a whole nother element. Publishing, I think when it comes to publishing and distribution, I think those methods are completely out of date. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of, even when you consider the fact that people can just crowdfund, people can pay the right people to ship their products out. Like it's outdated. The whole diamond, like, I believe all of that stuff is just happening because people are going through the motions, right? I think that's more of anything, and people are just going through the motions. This is what people have accepted for years, that this is the case. This is how we distribute. This is how we publish. And I think that there's another route that can be taken specifically because of social media, and you have access, a direct line of sight. This is what a lot of these crowd funds, when you see the Indiegogos of the world and the GoFundMe's of the world, you're seeing people now more than ever have a direct line of sight with, from creator to fans, which you didn't have that. And comics is actually late to the party because music just dealt with this. Music is actually still dealing with this because they still can't understand the element of streaming. That completely flipped the music, and I speak out of this out of experience. That completely flipped the industry on its head, and they're still trying to catch up with that. They don't even know how to monitor it. What amount? It's always changing. What amount should count as a sale? So what will determine what's what's going to be a diamond record versus a platinum record. They have no idea, and they're still trying to figure that out. They're still trying to figure that out. So comics is dealing with the same thing that music is dealing with, where you got people that are just skipping the line. Whereas to back in the gap, you had to, if you had an idea, you had to go through your medium. It was like, all right, you got to go through in the music industry. You had to go through radio. You know what I mean? Like you had to go through hope an A&R, or hope somebody came across your music, get signed to a label, yada yada. Now I could upload a video, and if it's popping, it's popping, and then I have all of these fans having never signed a contractual deal with any label, not even for distribution or anything like that, because you can. If you wanted to drop a digital only record, you could do that right now. Anybody could upload, they get their music on iTunes, get their music on all these different platforms. Music industry is still trying to catch up with that. I use my band as a big example of this, because my band went, we sold a lot of Billboard charted, had top 10, top 15 Billboard charts, or where it was rock, rap, number one alternative new artist, number two on the Heat Seeker album that week, having only signed a deal that dealt with our distribution. That was it. Like there was a self-release. It was a self-release. Something like that 20 years ago was unheard of. You know what I mean? It was unheard of. But this is what social media has allowed us to do. And I think the comic industry's got to catch up, and they will, I believe. And once that happens, I think there's going to be, all it takes is for a couple of guys with some sense, man, to be like, and then maybe it will take an image of the world to be like, all right, we've been doing it this way for I don't know how long, or we don't have to. So why don't we stop? Because a lot of this stuff is through the motions, man. It's going through the motions. It's what we're familiar with from publishing on down, from distribution on down and up. It's people are used to certain things in the way we've done this stuff, and that's just how we're doing it. It does not mean that we have to continue to do it that way. So I do think there's going to be. So I think it's absolutely viable. I think there's something that they can do to sort of offset a lot of the crap that's going on, and it's in their own hand. Certainly because of the power of social media.
Right. Yeah. And that's just something kind of, yeah, like you're mentioning out there. I mean, I guess you could say all these companies stuck in the past and not really keeping up with the technology and things like that. And it
Mm-hmm.
really starts to affect their business. And I mean, that's really kind of started a long time ago, too, even like in retail with things like Amazon and things like that
Yep.
coming out. You
Yep.
see
Yep.
where people before used to gripe about like Walmart and things like that closing these mom and pop shops, and now it's even trickling down to them through the advent of the technology with social
Yeah.
media and things like that. And it's really all across the board. And
Yep.
sometimes I kind of feel like maybe that's where a lot of these kind of people are getting their feet in the door, because the younger generation, they're more savvy to it, and
Right.
and that's where the a lot of the, how would you say, like the political things get intermixed in there, because everybody gets into positions of power, and that's just something that just happens with everybody,
That's
really.
true.
You get
That's
in
very true.
positions of power, so once you're there, you do whatever you can, because until you're really in a position of power, you're just you're just going along doing your best to keep up and maybe get a promotion at work, or do
True.
better at this or that. And
True.
then so you get into a position of power, and then you start to make changes where you're at, and we start to see that just going across the board with everything, really, even in the movie industry, with all these comments from like Martin Scorsese and everything coming
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which is really kind of a funny thing too, because he was kind of one of those people that was in that same category of the people that like he's criticizing now.
True, true. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of, it's a generational thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes the people that were, in one position become on the opposite position just with time. You know what I mean? And it takes some getting used to, man. It takes some getting used to. And you're right. Just so many different industries are dealing with it. I just think social media alone it changed so much, man. And for the better, sometimes for the worse. But if you're operating on the same ideas that you thought were more so effective pre-social media, then it's only a matter of time before you get passed up by, all it takes is for a couple of people to get some sense. I use Blockbuster when we're talking about this, for example. There's no reason why Blockbuster, for example, should have allowed a concept like Redbox, they should have beat Redbox to the punch, right?
Right.
Blockbuster was the rental service, right? It was the rental service, and all it took was another company to be like, "Well, why don't we do it this way?" And and Netflixes of the world, they pop up. Yet they went that route, you know what I mean? And they fell under because they weren't innovative, right? They weren't continuing to grow, you know what I mean? Because there's no reason why Blockbuster shouldn't have beat out Redbox and Netflix. That should have been their thing. Like that should have been their thing because they already had the power, they already had the money, everybody knew who they were. They should have done what Netflix did. They should have done what Redbox was doing, but they didn't. They got comfortable. They got comfortable, and what happened? Well, Netflix, Redbox of the world, they came and now they're irrelevant. You know what I mean? It happens if you don't become innovative, if you don't use technology to your advantage. It happens, and again, every single industry deals with this because all it does is take a couple of people to get some sense, and you're done. You're done. Like you're done if you couldn't beat them to the punch. If somebody comes up with something that's more innovative, you know what I mean, or uses the technology to their advantage, the consumers want that. You know what I mean? The consumers are like, well, this makes my life a lot more easier.
Right. Yeah.
It was no reason. I laugh at Blockbuster because it's like they did that crap to themselves. They did it to themselves. No way. But when you're going through the same motions that you've been doing for the last 10 years, and all it takes is somebody to beat you to the punch to come up with something more innovative. And I think that whether we talk about comics, whether we talk about whatever have you, that's all it takes. So I always tell people to, like, no matter what it is they're doing, always try to get innovative. Always try to be better. You know what I mean? Always try to look at your competition, see what they're not doing, see how you can make it easier, more comfortable for your consumers, for your viewers, for your base. Because all it takes is for a couple of people to be like, instead of doing it this way, why don't we do it that way? And then you're just in the irrelevancy. Like that's all that it takes. And I personally, I think the comics industry needs a shakeup like that. It needs a shakeup of people that can make something happen, you know what I mean? And not just have to, whether it be from a distribution standpoint or what have you, shake it up. Make the big two be like, okay, wait a minute now. Like we gotta make some adjustments. And I personally welcome it.
Right. And, I feel just everything you're saying there, like, with the Blockbuster thing and, like you're saying, like, it's their fault. I mean, they literally had all the resources there.
Yep.
They
Yep.
had the movies on the shelf.
Yep.
All they had to
Yep.
do, all they had to do was literally buy a machine and set it out in front of their stores,
Yep.
shrink the size of their stores.
Yep.
And I
You know,
feel,
and you argue that probably would have saved them a lot of money for operation costs if they did that. Right? That's all they had to do. That's all they had to do. They just had to go that route. And again, like understanding that technology was advancing, people could have and it just tells me that they had maybe a bunch of older guys that were just completely out of touch with reality, completely out of touch with the growth of technology and the concept of streaming that was on the horizon. If they had people that understood what was popping off, they would have at the very least bought Netflix out. You know what I mean? When they had the chance to do it, but they didn't. They didn't, and there you go. And then they went under, and now Netflix is still around. Netflix is doing all of these original things, and even with Netflix, Netflix has its own problem right now because a lot of people saw what Netflix did, and now they're trying to do it. You know what I mean? So you have Disney Plus about to pop off. Everybody has their own little streaming service. For me, I love it as a consumer because I can watch stuff on demand. I love it. I absolutely love it that these people are competing. But even with Netflix right now, they're dealing almost with the same. They're going to have to deal with the same issue that Blockbuster did, even though they were the ones in that position. It happens, man. You got to remain innovative and you got to come up with fresh ideas because all it takes is for a couple of people to do maybe either something different that's more efficient, that's within the same realm, or just take what you're doing and do it better.
Right. Yeah, indeed. And I think that's, like I'm not really I haven't really went down like with the comics industry. I haven't really gone down like the comics gate rabbit hole, if you will,
Right, right.
but I have started to go the way of indie comic books in the industry. Just some of the smaller print publishers out there, like there's all these, like I said, Image Comics, there's Valiant
Hmm.
Comics. One in particular I've been really liking is Vault Comics and even Aftershock Comics, and these are companies that started in like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're not putting up like all kinds of numbers, but at the same time, they're still finding a way to get consumers out there, and they're still doing it through the traditional means of diamond distribution and things like
Right.
that. And then even like one of my favorite comics that I started reading this year was on Impact Theory Comics, which is a company that just started off. I mean, they do like motivational things, like motivational speaking and things like that.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Tom Bilyeu
Hmm.
or looked into them or anything, but I see them, and they actually went out and decided to create a comic book, and they got it out there and put it out there, and they've got a great art team on there and everything like that, and they're doing it the same way, and it just makes me kind of wonder, like it's still possible to make it out there. It's just a matter of like you're saying, being innovative, getting the right creators on these books,
Yep.
and writing stories that people want to read. And I've kind of, like I
Bingo.
said, I've kind of gone down that rabbit hole. I'm like, man, like there's a lot of really good stories out there that aren't even in the big two. And I'm even seeing some of these creators starting to get hired by like the DCs and the Marvels of the world
Yep.
to start writing books for them as well.
Yep. You're seeing a lot of that, and you're seeing, you're just seeing a lot of people that are looking to these alternatives. That's just what's happening. A lot of people are looking to alternatives that once didn't exist, and I love it. Me personally, I absolutely love it. I love that there's other things that are that are coming out. You know what I mean? And even with, I know the boys like started as a DC thing, but it's not anymore. And that's a comic book show that a lot of people are into. And this is what I think I think that that's what's going to happen. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of non-traditional, like not DC, not Marvel shows, like animated shows, live action TV shows, movies,
Hmm.
because definitely I think the rise of and it'd be weird if that's what did Marvel in, was just the fact that people are becoming more open to comic book culture, right? We're seeing this now with Marvel Cinematic Universe. It'd be something if that ended up being their own downfall, because what's going to happen is what we're seeing already is that other companies are like, well, we know we can't do what Marvel does. We know we can't get what Marvel gets. What if we invest in another comic book? You know what I mean? In terms of maybe a show, maybe an animated film or something like that. Why don't we invest there? And I think that we're going to see a lot of those alternatives pop up. I think we're going to see a lot of those pop off, and I think that's what it's going to take. It's going to take some of those, because you can just imagine some sort of blockbuster esque film that's of a that's not, that maybe pops off its own entire universe, that's not Marvel or DC. That's going to be a huge shakeup, man. And I think that's what's going to happen. And hopefully, as these creators continue to develop their work, they get the attention of people that want to invest in stuff like that. Because we saw with Amazon. I know with The Boys is not that big, but it's a show that a lot of people like, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think we're going to see a lot more of those sorts of shows being put out that are comic book based, but they're not based on what you maybe traditionally would consider DC or Marvel. I know The Boys is a little different because it was in that limbo DC products, not anymore, but at one point it was. But you understand what I'm saying, as far as people are attempting to invest in other things that are comic book related, but aren't really coming from the big two.
Right. Yeah. And that's a lot of that stuff, it seems like with all of these things too, it seems like so many things have gone political, and I don't really talk much about politics
Right.
here on the channel, but I mean, obviously, that's kind of where what all this stuff is leads to. I mean, it's at this point, all the entertainment is kind of all encompassing, like of everything, 'cause with all the creators and everything in there doing all of these things, and it seems like it really started to explode a lot more after, obviously, after Trump got elected.
That to me did it. I
And
mean, yeah, that's what I pinpointed to because it went to the stratosphere once that happened.
right. Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of really when it exploded because but it obviously even started before that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with in
Mm-hmm.
the former administration when Obama was there, with just some of the things, you know, that all happened there. And then
Spider Man had that Barack Obama where he's just cheesing, and that variant. Yeah, and I have a couple of them too. I should flip them and sell them, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it happens. It happens. It's been
and
happening for a while. You're right.
yeah, and it seems like these days, like it's almost it's affecting fandoms in a way that almost a lot of fandoms, you know, whether no matter what it is, at some point or another, all come down to, you know, we see divide in fan communities at this point. You know, be it whether it's movies, even comic books, you know, and it just it's just to me just so weird how all of this kind of just all starts coming together and out of politics.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, a lot of people, you know, even say out there, you know, like we don't want the politics in our media and things like that, yet there's still, I still feel a lot of people that are like that are still wanting it just on their side
Yeah,
only.
and that tends to be what it is. It's not necessarily they want politics out of it. They just want politics more reflective of their own personal politics. Is more so what it is. But politics that's what it is. You know, it ruins everything it touches. That's been my position for forever. It doesn't matter what it is, and it gets ugly, and it does create these sorts of pocket, sections of these fandoms and communities where you get people that are aligning, disassociating from each other, and we're seeing this arise. You know what I mean? Even with somebody like myself, you know what I mean, where people, I dare not to like, or I dare not to dislike something as strong as what some other guy thinks, and now I get people that don't like me anymore. It's like it's come to that. You know what I mean? It's come to, oh well, you didn't like, you don't hate Batwoman like I hate Batwoman. You know what I mean? Therefore, you're the worst person in the world. Oh, they got him now. Ripper's a social justice warrior, and it's like, is that really what we've come down to? You know what I mean? Like, is
Yeah.
that really what this is? Oh, X-Men, House of X, Powers of X is a bunch of social justice. It's like, dude, like, what is this? You know, it's making people insane. You know what I mean? It's making people insane. But we're that's where we're at. And that's unfortunately what politics does. It creates those sorts of the divisive sectors where it's us versus them. There's no in between. And a lot of people start to not make sense. That's what I've gotten from it, is that a lot of people, they're not consistent and they're not making sense. But to what you said, you're 100% correct. The people that even say that, like, get the politics out of my comics, it's usually that they wanted, it's just wanted to reflect their own personal politics. That's all it is. But my thing is that what separated years ago from the current era is more so centered around, there's no balance. I think you would hear less from those guys that say keep politics out of my comics if there was more balance. You know what I mean? It unfortunately, it's one dominating a political ideology that seems to be the theme, if there is a political theme, of every single comic being put out. There is, and it's mainstream leftism. If we're going to be completely honest, it's mainstream leftism. There's not a whole lot of Marvel putting out more, let's say, libertarian storylines, right?
Right.
Those don't really exist. There's a couple of them that may fall through the cracks, but for the most part, it doesn't exist. The shots that get taken on both of those sides, and it's because, again, Trump sent these guys over the deep end. You got guys, the writers that I've discussed time and time again on my channel, that are, you can go watch their Twitter. That's the one thing I do love about social media these days, is that we can go see all of this now. Like, I
Right.
could go say, oh, so and so wrote this. Let me go look them up, and then I go look them up, and their whole timeline is filled with, I hate Trump. I hate Trump. I hate Trump. And I'm like, oh, well, now it makes sense. It makes sense why I picked this up from your book. It's like to the point to where now I can read a book isolated on its own without reading the, I guess the politics, or knowing who even the writer is. And I'm like, I'm willing to bet that this writer is a staunch Democrat, top to bottom. I'm willing to bet it. I'll bet money on it. And I'll go look it up. Lo and behold, that's exactly what it is. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. There should at least be some sort of balance, right? And I think that if that balance exists, we wouldn't have this problem. But what people are seeing, what people are frustrated is that, dang, why is that every time there is a political narrative, it seems to come from one side? You know what I mean? It seems to come from one side and has my characters that I've known and loved acting like I wouldn't expect them to act. And it's because, again, you have people that are writing these books that are incapable of flipping that switch off. And this is what separates, to me, a good writer from a bad writer, right? The good writer takes the character, if he pitched it or it was pitched, it was pitched to him. Hey, I want you to write so-and-so. Good writer says, okay, this is the character, this is the character's legacy, this is the character's attitude. I'm going to write a story that's fresh, new, but in the spirit of the character. A terrible writer looks at that and says, how can I funnel my personal social preference or political preference through the storyline of this character, even if it means that the character acts like they should not act? That's what separates them. And unfortunately, it's a lot of the latter that is happening these days. And writers are putting their own personal politics in the comic book. You know what I mean? They're putting their own personal politics in the comic book, and they just aren't capable of hitting the off switch. And again, if there's one thing you can maybe blame Trump for, you can blame that on Trump for making these guys go crazy, because that's unfortunately what he did, that these people have lost their mind.
Yeah, and it's crazy too to me. I mean, like, because these days, I mean, even like at this point, fans act like all the this entertainment stuff. Like they act like it's politics at this point. Like,
Oh yeah.
you see people out there won't associate with each other over their different thing that they nerd out about, be it Marvel, DC, the movies, and just all the different things. And it's so crazy. And sometimes I sit there and I think to myself, like, what's going on in this world? Like this, where did all this come from? This isn't the world I grew up in, and I know it's somewhat due to the social media and everything. But like, people can't even control themselves when it comes to this stuff. Like, it just causes such a divide with everybody in that sense, and like in the end, like, it kind of makes me sad. Just seeing this. It's like it's like,
pathetic,
damn.
man. Like it's hard for us to, like, you can't even have legitimate conversations with people, man. And it's the whole political that divide that comes with it has crept into the comic book side of things. And yes, we've had DC versus Marvel, and we've had these things, but I feel like back when I was growing up, is a little more, I don't know, a little more lighthearted, if you will, than what it is now. Now it's almost like fighting words. If you say that you like, I did a video. All I did was talk about the Joker, right? I talked about Joker, the Joker movie, and I was saying how much it made. All I did was present the facts. And then I presented a theory like, okay, maybe DC, instead of trying to copy what Marvel does, why don't they maybe continue to make movies and maybe an extended universe that appeals to a more mature audience? And I saw this guy comment on my page on that video, going nuts, dude. Going completely nuts, calling me a DC fanboy. And I'm like, all I did was present to you the facts. It was the most profitable comic book movie, in terms of, I mean, it's making like almost 15 times what they put into it. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
I wasn't even the first one to report it. I even put the friggin' link of the article in the page because I wanted people to go read it themselves. And he's calling me a DC fanboy because I dared to say that. And I'm like, is that where we're at, man? Like, you guys can't control your emotion. You see somebody even objectively objectively says something positive about what DC is doing, and you go ape. And this is coming from like how can somebody accuse me of all people of being a DC fanboy? As much as like I have no allegiance to any of these companies. If you've watched my videos, you see like all the stuff that I always have hanging on my walls. Like I have characters from both companies. I have no allegiance to Marvel or DC. None. They don't. Neither one of them pay me. Neither one of them would pay me to do anything for them. But the fact that I reported something, reported what was reported, but reported something that was positive, or more so in a positive light, but I was being objective about it. Like I wasn't even saying in a sense like, haha, take that, Marvel, Joker's doing better than I never did that. Like that's that's stupid. It was just me being objective. Like it's the most profitable comic book movie. And the dude's all like, you DC fanboys, he's just going off, sending me this wall of text. And I'm like, bro, is that where we're at? But that's where the sort of you call it partisanship, if you will, but that's sort of what pops off with the comic book industry, and that's what it adopts from how people act. You know what I mean, in terms of how people act, and it's sad, man. It's sad. It's frustrating because you can almost immediately tell that people's emotions are controlling their position. You know what I mean? It's not like they came to that position by way of any sort of logic, evidence, or anything like that. It's just, I want this to be the position. Therefore, I will do whatever emotional and mental gymnastics that I have to do in order for that to be the case. And it's just, no matter what you're talking about from an argumentation standpoint, that's lousy, man. That's just so lousy. This is a very, very lousy tactic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so weird how like just all these things bring out like a bunch of weirdos these days, and it's you know, and it's just like, just like the other day on that stream when you researched yourself, and we come across Spider-Man. I've seen, I'm sure you've seen that video I posted today on that guy.
That was good, man. When I saw that, I was like, what the, like, these are the guys that are coming at me, man. Like that's what.
Yeah, and it just cracks me up, and I'm like this guy. So because after that, just this morning, I actually went through. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go look. Who is this guy? What's he doing?
This guy? Yeah.
So I went and scrolled through his videos and everything, and I actually even found a video where he was actually like, there's, I don't know, probably some like 10-year-old kid who made a YouTube video, and he's sitting there giving this little kid a hard time because about his summation of some Spider-Man movie or something, and he says towards the end of the movie, in the video, he's like, oh man, there's something wrong with this kid, and towards the end he says, I wish this kid would die.
What?
Yeah, he said, I wish this kid would die, and I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, again, like, where do these weirdos come from when it comes to this kinds of stuff? And
you guys are weirdos, man. Like, who says that? But no, that's the type of stuff. I have another one that I'm gonna do that I reacted to, is another YoungRippa59 exposed video. And this guy is so weird. Like, at the end of the video, it was a hockey threat, and I couldn't do anything but laugh at it. Because he said something along like, Young Ripper, something, better stay in your place before I put you in. Hey, I can't take that serious, man. Some guy on YouTube telling me to, like, but I'm like, these dudes are weird, man. Like, these dudes are freaking weird, man. These guys are true weirdos, but that's what's, I don't know. I want to blame Marvel, not Marvel themselves, but the cinematic universe and the rise of it. I want to blame them so bad because, to me, that's it's attracting people.
Right. They're on the forefront.
Right. Exactly. You're right. So it's attracting these sort of people that aren't really emotionally or financially invested in the comic book industry. They see it as just an opportunity to start some sort of conversation. Right. This is why you and I have talked about this. And I saw you were streaming about it, some of these clickbait videos that you can almost immediately tell that none of these people they're not invested in this. They don't care about this. This is like, all right, well, I can get a couple of clicks and monetize this. And it's the hot topic right now. Therefore, I'm going to do it. They don't care about any of that. And that's, unfortunately, this is what we're attracting. And we're attracting these weirdos. We're attracting these weirdos who have these weird allegiances to Marvel or DC. Like, dude, I've never once been like, you know what, screw Marvel, screw DC. I've never once said that. And it could happen the opposite way. I could say something positive about Marvel, and somebody call me a DC fanboy and say something positive about DC, to call me a Marvel fanboy, and it's like, can anybody just address my position? That's all I ask. Like, I just ask, man, is that you take what I say for what I say and argue against that. There's no need for all of this emotional bull crap, but that's what, unfortunately, it's attracting. It's attracting these types of individuals, and we have to have these weird conversations, and I have to come across these weird videos of people making weird videos about me. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, these guys, these bad posture and out of shape, and calling me all kinds of names. Like, how am I supposed to take that serious, man? Like, even the guy that I'm gonna do this video, or that I gotta upload this video for, it's like, dude, like, I can't even take y'all serious. But I'm more tripped out the fact that you thought uploading this video was okay. Like, this is a good idea. Like, what's wrong with you, man? Like, get control, get a grip, man. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. People are just so emotionally, and it's not even. I disagree with the idea that they're emotionally invested in the characters. I think it's more of a. It seems like more of a fraud sense. Like that guy, Skinny Spider-Man, was telling me that I didn't read modern comics. I was like, nobody in their right mind that maybe watched one video from me could ever make that claim. They could never make. If it's one thing that you could say, or you can't rather say, is that I don't read modern. You cannot make that claim. You can't make that claim. But he made it. So I'm like, and he said it with such confidence. Like, what? But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. People are. I don't know why people feel so that it's not. I disagree with the idea that they're even emotionally invested, because I think anybody that was more so rational about it, because I'd like to think that I'm emotionally invested in some of these comic books, but not to the point to where I'm being irrational. And that's because I'm in it for the right reasons, in terms of, and I'm actually in it because I'm into it, not because that just happens to be the hot thing that people are into. Once the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if it goes, I'm still going to be here. Guys like you are still going to be here reading these books. They're going to move on to the next fandom. You know what I mean? And that, I think I can almost tell immediately where these guys are coming from, and a lot of these guys they're ill-intended. They don't really mean well, but it almost feels like a threat to them. Like, the fact that I know more about the characters than they do, but I have something negative or positive to say about a character, and they just don't like that I reached that conclusion. And yeah, that's just the political element of it, and it's crept in the comic books from a cultural standpoint to where we're this divisive, to where people just make terrible arguments. But it's okay to make terrible arguments as long as that guy's on the opposite end of you on the conversation.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's kind of something that funny that you bring up, like, that, like, emotionally invested in a lot of these characters, because that's something that I kind of believe in too. I mean, we all, it seems like a lot of these people just run on emotions, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people do that a lot of times anyway, is
Hmm.
running on their emotions instead of, because people get triggered, and I kind of don't like that word all the time neither, but
Yeah,
they
but
get
it is.
triggered
I
and
mean,
they act
I guess that's the proper
irrationally.
word to tell it. A trigger. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you just act irrationally, and you're running on emotions. It's like, like, sometimes just like take the time, just calm down a little bit. Like, you're like, you like the stuff, and I get it. Like even me, like when Spider-Man was not going to be in the MCU no more. People just started acting crazy. They start these hashtags like boycott Sony and
That
all
shit was
this thing,
crazy.
and they're just mad at these companies over a character not being in this universe.
That was
And
crazy.
like, I'm a fanboy of this stuff. I love these movies and everything. I go see every single one of them. I own all the movies. But you know what? One thing you won't see me do is sit there and act like an out of control, emotional little kid about it, and sit there and kick and fluster. Like, it's like, okay, well, it's no big deal to me. He's not going to be in the MCU no more, and I guess that's it. I mean, Sony's got
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, that was what my position was. But yeah, to see all of these people make these videos, and that was another video that I don't want to say I got backlash for, but I got a lot of people that didn't like what I had to say about it, because my position was like, whatever. Like, I thought this version of the Spider-Man in the MCU was a goofy version of Spider-Man. So whatever, you know what I mean? Like I ain't gonna lose no sleep. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna lose any sleep. But yeah, you have people that are like boycott an entire company because of that. And I'm like, really?
Right.
Like that just because they have the quote unquote rights to Spider-Man and they're going to, you know, it was a possibility that he wasn't going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe anymore. Just because of that, you're willing to go that length? Like, wow, like that was crazy. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. These people are nutty, and unfortunately, I have to deal with it in the comment section of my YouTube. These crazy, sort of deranged people that, I'm very tight with my comment section. I always go read my comment section, believe it or not, just to see where people at. And I always love to, go back and forth with some of the people that are descendants of mine. And I'm like, to see how emotionally tied to these characters some people are irrationally. Like it's not like, okay, again, emotions match up with the logic and you actually can defend the position that you maybe have or something. It's never that. It's I because reasons. This is basically all their non-arguments. It's just because reasons. And you not on the same side as me, so you're bad. And I'm gonna call you all sorts of names because of it. I'm like, man, like it's like, come on, man. Like, just take a step back, analyze the situation, just make a better argument. Even if you disagree, that's fine. But it's no need to go there with it to where, like, again, some of these videos where you got guys just calling me all sorts of names just because I dare to not like, I don't know, Miss Marvel. Like really? Like that's where we're at. I don't like Miss Marvel. Therefore, I got what he called me. They got called me racist, ageist. He called me all kinds of names, and I'm like, why? Because I don't like Miss Marvel. Like that's what you picked up from it. Don't like Miss Marvel, racist. That's how crazy these guys are.
Yeah, yeah, and again, like I don't know what's again like it just reminds me like this what where do all these weirdos come from? And somehow they're all attracted to you.
Yeah, man. They love to come at me, man. I don't know why. I feel like I don't know. Like it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always like that where these guys were just always coming to my videos. There was a point in time where my videos were even the comment section was pretty cool, pretty chill. But then like it just I don't know if it was a movie that came out or what it was. Maybe it was the Captain Marvel thing. And then I guess I just got on the radar of
Hmm.
some of these people, right? So I just got on the radar. I just got on the radar of some of these fools. And once I got on the radar, maybe they're in like Reddit forums or something talking about me. And every time I upload a video, they come read my post or something like that. Because I have down votes on my videos. I have premiere videos, bro. Videos they ain't even seen yet, right? Like it's just this is the name of the video. This is what we're talking about, and I already got people down voting the video. That lets me know that I got people that specifically either subscribe to me or follow me to dislike me, and that is to me weird.
Right, right. I mean, it just comes down to monetize your haters at that point, right?
Got to, man. That's why I do the videos that I do, because if you're definitely if you make a video about me, I'm not one of those guys that's gonna just ignore it unless I just don't have time. If you make a video about me, we're going through it. We're going through it because I know for the most part I'm gonna be able to make money off of it. So why not? Why not? Let's just have a conversation about it. And you got to monetize your haters. I always encourage people to do that. Monetize them. Your audience might like it. On a serious note, I think my audience loves when I break down some of these subject matter. Sometimes it's a learning opportunity for these guys. So yeah, absolutely monetize your haters. You got to.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it like I don't know, people just act weird about these things, and I guess it's comes down to like I said, even like with fans and things like that, just constantly going at it over these things, and it's like guys, just and I talk a lot about that here on my channel, just like calm down, like can we just start at ground zero where we're all fans. We're fans of this stuff, and then let's try to have a conversation
Yo.
and move forward from there. But everything these days is just it's so one way or the other. You can't criticize something and have somebody be okay with it. Everybody's got to be just constantly at each other's throats over it. And again, like to me, it makes me think like what kind of like it's bonkers. And even people who feel the same way about the same things go just constantly going at it. And I don't know. I guess I'll just never understand where this is coming from these days.
Yeah, man, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's this emotional, nonsensical sort of approach that these guys have when it comes to these comic book characters. And to me, I guess the most weird or more odd thing of it, at least to me, because I know some of these guys don't read this material like at all, right? They don't read the material at all. And this is what and this is why I won't settle. Like I'm gonna go after you if you come at me with this nonsense, because I know you're not equipped for this. You're not even equipped to take the conversation there. So for you to even have the audacity to come at me sideways like that, I can't allow it. I can't allow it. But social media has created a culture of people that feel like they have to have an opinion about everything, right? And I
Right.
discuss this all the time on my page, where everybody has to feel like they have a position on every single thing that people are talking about. And because they want to be a part of the conversation, they often put their feet in their mouths, if you will, because they don't know. They're not equipped. It's just, this is the cool thing. I'm a surface level. I can understand maybe surface level. I can Google it real fast or something like that. Get my information from a fandom site. I don't like the conclusion he came to, so I'm gonna come at him. And I would say, I guess, out of all of this, that's something that annoys me. But it's hard to understand why you would put yourself out there like that. If I do videos on a subject matter, if I like, usually for the most part, I know a lot about it, right? I don't fix my mouth to talk about things that I don't understand. I just won't do it. I just won't do it. I just don't. I won't do it. I won't talk about something that I don't understand. Not in terms of having an opinion that's aggressive, loud or something of that nature, knowing good and well that I know little about the subject matter. And unfortunately, when it comes to comic books, everybody wants to be an expert because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a thing. DC's putting out these movies as well. Everybody wants to be an expert on the character. So everybody wants to have an opinion about the character. And everybody wants to be a part of the fandom. But I don't feel that way. Every time Star Wars puts out a trailer, that's where my timeline is dominated with.
Right.
Anytime when the Game of Thrones things is popping off, it's the same thing. I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Right. But
I
people
don't
still
watch.
expect you to have a
I don't.
position.
Right. So I don't have a position. Now, granted, everybody would always ask me about it. Hey, man, how you feel about the Star Wars trailer? I tell you, I don't have an opinion. I can't. Why? I don't know jack about Star Wars. On my last stream, we went through, like, somebody say, "Hey, watch this." Well, it's like, watch this whatever game that's about to come out, Jedi game that's about to come out, and they were like, watch the trailer, or it was a gameplay trailer if I'm not mistaken. So we
Hmm.
watched it, and I'm asking the audience questions because I'm like, what is this? Why is he able to do that? Because I don't know. I don't watch Star Wars, man. I don't know anything about it. I've watched it. I can't say that I haven't seen it at all, but I don't know enough about it to be like, I haven't seen every single movie, or I can't remember everything at the very least, or what happens. But that is not offensive to me. You know what I mean? To be like, I don't know about it. But for whatever reason, everybody feels like, I don't know if it's an insecurity thing, because people feel like they have to be a part of the conversation. A lot of people feel like they have to be a part of the conversation. It's like, well, I don't know about this. Therefore, I gotta have a conversation. But I gotta be a part of the conversation. Everybody's talking about it, so I gotta talk about it. I don't
Right.
feel that way. I've never felt that way. I've never felt that way about anything. It's like, if I want to go get knowledgeable on it, I'll go learn about it. But I don't feel like I have to do a video about a Star Wars trailer knowing damn well that I don't know anything about Star Wars, or I know very little about Star Wars, just to get clicks or just to be a part of the conversation, because that's not me, man. And I encourage people to have that similar approach. At the very least, go learn about it. You know what I mean? Before you start talking about it, at the very least, go learn about it. You know what I mean? But it's no reason to put your foot in your mouth and say stupid stuff, because this unfortunately that's what ends up happening. That's what ends up happening. People say something dumb, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how this works. That's not true. Like, do you read this material? Of course they don't. They Googled something real fast, and now they're experts, and which is weird. I can't get over that. I'll never understand it. I'll never understand that. Like, dude,
Yeah.
why would you want to talk about something and be so passionate about something that you're knowingly not even knowledgeable on?
Right, right, yeah, and that's kind of me, like I'm not one to like really knock anybody's hustle here on YouTube. I mean, if they do what you do what you do. But one
Right.
thing I always kind of laugh about is when I see a bunch of these, a bunch of people who are doing exactly what you're talking about, where they don't really know about something, but oh hey, we got this covered, put it this article up, and I'm gonna read it and share my opinions on it. And I see
Right.
people doing this with with movies,
Yep.
with comic books, and just all of these different things. And a lot of times, I'm just like, why even make that video, if you don't know about it? Like, I mean, I guess you can read it and talk about it, I guess, but like altogether, I mean, in the name of just getting clicks or traffic to your site, I
That's
mean,
exactly what it is.
why talk about that? Like, I'm kind of like you. If I don't know about something, I won't talk about it, and if I do, I will admit my level of knowledge in
Bingo.
whatever it is
Bingo.
I'm talking about.
Bingo.
And
You at least gotta have the integrity to do that, right? Like, you got at least gotta have the integrity to do that. So if you're watching something from a surface level, like you got, you say, hey, I don't really know about this, you know what I mean? I think people with integrity, that's what that's their approach, you know what I mean? That's how they do it. But yeah, there's a lot of people that that have these videos, they have these I guess YouTube channels, and it is for driving traffic to their page, and it's and they don't really know about any of this. And to me, that's not interesting, at least from my standpoint. I don't have any interest on anything. Like, if I want to get knowledgeable, like, believe it or not, there's comic book characters I don't know anything about, right?
hmm
So there may be people that I know about it, and they may be talking about it on their channels. I'll go I'll go read it, like, or I'll go watch it, excuse me. And I'm like, okay, well, this person knows their stuff.
right.
And I'll go watch it. You know what I mean? And I'm cool with that. I'm perfectly cool with that. Like, I'm not offended because somebody may know more about a character than I do. There's a lot of people that know more about even my favorite character, Batman. Like, there's some people that are Batman specialists. They can tell you everything about Batman. I can't do that. I can tell you a lot about it, but because I'm so versed in other things, it's kind of hard for me to just know Batman and that's it. You know what I mean? But there's people out there that are like that, and they have entire, channels dedicated for this type of stuff, and that's cool. That's their niche. That's what they specialize in. So it's not criminal to go watch those or go consume that sort of media when people are actually knowledgeable on it. But I just can't bring myself to participate. I can't even watch somebody like just have such strong, loud opinions on things, knowing that they don't have any idea. They have no idea what they're talking about. It's just, all right, it's part of the conversation. Everybody's talking about it. Why don't I go talk about it?
Right, and that's something I feel the same way, and to me, in a lot of ways, I feel that somebody who's doing that, whether it's making YouTube videos, they have a website, or just different things like that, or even writing articles and things about it, on websites. It's just overall, I think a lot of the times that kind of hurts the fandoms and things like that as well. Given whatever you're into, and just again, like, I get that you're trying to get people to your sites, you're trying to make these provocative headlines, but then you're taking things out of context, and just, I mean, all the same
Yeah,
things that and it's the same, I guess, game that's played in politics. And
true.
altogether, I think it's a bad thing that people are going out there, and it really hurts the fans and everything, because you see, like you said, everybody has to go out there as well and make a video about every little thing, and then a lot of that starts to talk, spreading false rumors, spreading false narratives, and just things like that. And it's like, I really think that kind of hurts things as well. And sometimes it can help, though, too. I mean, in some instances, it can help when you get people together, like when they don't like things, and actually studios and these companies will actually listen to people. But again, it doesn't come from people talking about what they don't know about.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. Like, you got to at least, at the very least, know what you're talking about. And to me, just from a content creation standpoint, right? From a content creation standpoint, I think you owe it to at the very least, to your fans, Certainly, if you have a following, and this is why I'm very careful with what I do because I know that my words can have impact in some way, shape, or form. And I think that I owe it to my fan base to be at the very least honest, even if I'm very opinionated about something. Like I'm honest, and this is why I'm always so open to having these. I'm pretty sure you popped up in some of my streams, and I'll be like, "Hey, man, this guy that disagrees with me, I have no problem with bringing you on the channel. We'll have a discussion." You know what I mean? Because definitely somebody like myself that has such strong opinions on certain things, I think I owe it to my fans to have to think on my toes, and I think I owe it to them to have to defend my position. You know what I mean? Certainly, if I take one that's even mildly controversial, even if I'm not one of those guys that'll run away from conversation. That's not a secret. But I think I owe it to my fans. I owe it to definitely because I have a following. It's like, dude, you can't be just going around saying willy nilly. You know what I mean? You got to at least mean something. Like, you know what I mean? And it has to be some sort of truth in it. And I don't want to go around just making stuff up. So I just feel like I owe it to my fan base to be at the very least honest. You know what I mean? At the very least, because that's the easiest thing to do. That don't cost anything. It don't cost anything to be honest, even against people that I disagree with. At the very least, let me like if I know that if I quote them on something, let me make sure I'm going off of what they actually said. You know what I mean? Not going off of what I want them to say. I talked about this in my Kanye video I did the other day. And they hate Kanye so much. Hip hop media hates Kanye so much that they just make something up. Like, you know, they just make something up. It's not even true. It's a verifiable video of the actual quote, and they still put out a quote that was not what he said. Right.
Right.
So that's irresponsible. Complex, for example, which was the hip hop media that was in question.
Mm-hmm.
They have almost a million Twitter followers. Excuse me. Like that's irresponsible. That's irresponsible to post something like that. I'm gonna present this guy as crazy as I can, knowing that it's a lie. Like it costs you nothing to be honest, and I just don't like that. If anything, that really frustrates me when I see people with followings that are just dishonest. Because again, it costs them nothing to do that. To
Right.
be honest, at least.
Right. And yeah, again, to me, it's crazy too. And then you get I don't know, and social media is weird in that way too, where people like, and I can tell you're one of these kind of guys. I don't know. I guess it's similar to me. Like I can, yeah. I mean, we all somewhat have egos, but like you
Yeah.
don't take ego in yourself, like where you have yourself so built up, you're not open to criticism and things
Yep.
like that. And then we see it a lot, just like on Twitter and everything. All these people, whether they're movie directors, whether they're musicians, whether whatever they are, even comic book creators, when they get out there and interact, and at the slightest bit of criticism, it's like block, instant block,
Oh man,
and
definitely the comic book creators, man. Those guys, I feel like half the industry, man, has me blocked. Halftime, I never said anything against them. You know what I mean? They just got me by affiliation or something. They must have saw my video. This is why. Look, my theory is that Marvel, specifically, some of those writers watch my videos. I don't like. You can't convince me otherwise. For one, because I know that those guys are like I know artists and stuff over there that I can't really just out. Not just the Sasuke sisters. I'm not even saying
right,
that. It's like I actually know artists, I know writers that are writing books right now for Marvel that are like that message me specifically like on Facebook and stuff like that, and they're like, "Hey man, I agree with what you say. I can't say it because my job will be in jeopardy or my opportunities will be in jeopardy if I did that. But man, I really, I agree with what you say. But I get caught in these blocks for people that, it can't all just be blockchain. You know what I mean? I'm getting caught with blocks with people I ain't never even interacted with. So it's like, these guys know I exist. You know what I
right,
mean? Like these guys absolutely know I exist. But you're right. That's what they do. Me, I wish y'all could see my Twitter block list. It doesn't exist. I don't
right,
have a Twitter block list. And y'all see me, I always said, I mean, I would argue most of my Twitter is just me interacting with people that disagree with me. You know what I mean? Like that's usually the bulk of my tweets.
right.
And it's not like it. And this is why how these echo chambers get created, right? And
Yeah,
why people. And this is why I think a lot of folks within the comic book realm, in terms of newer writers, they exist in this bubble, and they wonder why, like, there's people that dare to make videos that don't like their material. It's because they create these bubbles, these chambers, echo chambers, due to the blocking, in which they think that the people that praise them are the only ones that exist. They're the only people that exist. And yes, if you set your social media up as such, then yes, that's going to be your approach because that's all you see. That's all you're exposed to. Meanwhile, there's a whole group of people that are like, no, we disagree or we don't like it. And as a creator specifically, I would think if anything that you pay attention to would be that. But no, that's how they are. It's definitely politically. It's like,
Right.
oh man, this guy doesn't agree with me. Block. Oh, well, now everybody, and this is how we wanted to, I hate to get political, but this is arguably how they lost the election in 2016 because they created the bubble. You know what I mean? Where you think about it, and it was more of a metaphorical bubble. Well, maybe it didn't have to do with block, but think about it. You had every form of mainstream social media saying there was no way in hell that Donald Trump was going to win this presidency. No way. And you start to believe it. Why? Because all the mainstream media outlets say it, all the blue check marks say it, all of the, political pundits, all of the mainstream artists, everybody was like, there is no way that this guy wins. And you almost believe it because they're like, well, all these people are saying it, and they believe it, obviously, because that's all they're exposed to, right? Everybody agrees with this. And then he won.
Right.
I mean, it didn't want. That's like a prime example of how, yes, you talk amongst people that agree with, and this is what the arts have it the worst. Music industry has it the worst. Like they thought everybody, they can't fathom a world, right, where people actually like Donald Trump. They can't conjure that up, right, in their mind. Why? Because everybody agrees with him. Everybody hates him. That they know. That's a part of their subculture. So to me, that's getting us such an unrealistic, and maybe they don't see it that way. It's like, hey man, if I block or I ignore it, then it doesn't exist. I think that's maybe the approach that they have. And I try not to be like that, man. I don't have a block list specifically on Twitter, which I would argue that's social media that I'm most active on. I don't have a block list. I don't have a block, but even on YouTube, the only people that are blocked are people that like maybe spam my chat. You know what I mean? Like if you don't spam the live chat, you can call me out my name, all kinds of stuff. The comments, all there, that's fine. You know what I mean? And I think that there's people that maybe honestly criticize. I get criticized all the time, and not every criticism. There was a guy that did a video about me, and I actually agree with his point. He wasn't necessarily disagreeing with everything that I had to say, but he was saying that I thought it was a good point. I told the guy, I actually tweeted at the guy, and I told him that was a good point because he was saying how he was talking about how the Marvel Cinematic Universe is maybe a little necessary in terms of bringing people to maybe some of the comic books and stuff. And it wasn't necessarily a disagreement. It was something that in the video that he was responding to, I didn't take it into consideration. I straight up told the guy, like, touche, like,
right.
Point taken. Right? That was a good point. That was a good point. I didn't mention that. And you're right. That's actually a point to consider. Like, I have no problem, dude, like with somebody disagreeing with me. My issue is when they disagree with something I didn't say, or they were maybe disrespectful or something like that. But I would never go that route when it comes to like blocking people and stuff like that or anything, because I don't want to sit in the echo chamber and get confused as to thinking and maybe tricking myself to believing that my opinion is the opinion and the only opinion.
Right. Yeah. And I'm a lot the same way. Like a block list. I mean, just like you. I mean, I don't have it because a lot of times, like it's not that I don't care what somebody has to say, but sometimes it's like I don't care in that way to where I'm going to have to block somebody or I can't put up with hearing somebody
That's a
else's
little
opinion.
extreme, right?
Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways, just like with these creators, these, no matter who they are, blocking those people is a bad thing as well. I mean, it doesn't help anything.
True.
And we should all be wanting to improve. And to me, one of the things I've talked about a lot is, I want to hear everybody's opinions, and that's why I don't block people, is because I want to hear everybody's opinions, because I'm kind of a culmination of everybody that's around me, everybody that's had input in my life, yeah, everybody I come across. They've all affected me in some way. Maybe they give me something to think about, even if I don't agree with them. They give me something to think about, and maybe it kind of makes me change my position a little bit, or maybe
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
think like, okay, like maybe this isn't so bad, or things like, just I'm open to those kinds of things. And that's why I think it's bad when a lot of these people go out there and they have to do that, just blockchain everybody and all of these kinds of things. It's like, I mean, really, you're the one who suffers, not
True.
me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They suffer because, again, in doing that, they aren't getting dissenting. And you believe it or not, that can maybe help you. Like, I even do that with my band. Like, there were dissenting maybe opinions in not necessarily the style of my band that my band play, but there are people that will be like, okay, look, I prefer when y'all go this route as opposed to that route. Like, as a person whose entire base depends on their artwork and their art form, you should pay attention to that. It doesn't mean that every criticism is honest. It doesn't mean that every criticism is valid, but that's something to take into consideration going into the next album, right? That's something to take
Right.
into consideration that, okay, well, we saw a lot of comments of people that were like, well, they prefer this style because we had a wide range of different kind of tunes on our 18 track album. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense as to why there may be people that will prefer this over that. That's something to take into consideration to, at the very least, maybe our marketing going into the next album. But if I'm just like, well, they don't like it, get this guy out of my face, like that it creates an echo chamber, and then all I'm listening to are people that already agree with what I say, right? And I don't like that. I think it's actually bad for material as well, because like I love, this is why I have the Monetize Your Haters playlist, because I love to see people disagree, right? I love
Right.
it. Like, I actually get riled up. Oh man, this guy made a whole video about me, or he had a big wall of text or something. I get excited, right? I get
Right.
stoked on that because I'm like, well, I get to respond to it, right? Because sometimes it's a learning opportunity. Like, for example, my video that I did with the guy saying the OK Boomer thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a learning opportunity for my entire audience. Like, I got to teach them about federal budgets. I got to teach them about how much the government already spends. I got to teach them about all of that stuff. It was an opportunity. You know what
Right.
I mean? But if I'm just like, he blocked me, ironically, that guy, the guy we were talking about, blocked me. But he's like, in doing so, he's completely, and though he's the one that initiated the conflict, he believes, and a lot of people like this are like this, right? When it comes to social media, they like, okay, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, right? If I don't see it, it doesn't exist. And I just don't operate. I welcome that stuff because even if it doesn't maybe help me adjust my actual position, it may help me adjust my approach because I take that into consideration. I'm like, okay, well, even though maybe that's not my opinion, or I think this person is wrong, maybe in my next video I can address the point that they made, right? And that way we don't have to deal with that. It's just little stuff like that that you're not gonna pick up if everybody agrees with everything you gotta say. And in response to that, you just block them or you ignore it and act like it's not there.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, exactly kind of what you're talking about here too, is something you've often talked about a lot, with like these, people in Hollywood, the music industry and things like that. And obviously they're out there, they influence our kids, because I grew up, I listened to music, I watched movies and all of these things, and they all had an influence on me. But these days it's even more so, because there's, and I can't say that it's necessarily there's more political leanings or agendas or anything in music now than there ever was. It's just with, like we were talking about earlier, with the social media, it's just all so much faster.
Right.
And then, something you talk about a lot is, if you want to make the change, you got to help be part of the change.
Yep.
Go out there and make some music. Go out there and make a movie, write a comic book, or
There you
something
go.
that expresses your opinions or your feelings. Or to me, like, me here, I mean, I've got so many things that I can do that I'm good at. But at the same time, I decided, hey, maybe I want to become a content creator, and then here on YouTube, and still while I'm in the scope of talking about comic books and movies and things like that, I can also talk about other things as well, much like you do, and not just
Yeah.
focus on these one things, to hopefully get people in to help make a change for things like that, to maybe get people to see and have more of an open dialogue with things like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's the way. If at least if you want to be, honest, I think again you show your audience that you have integrity if you have that approach. And I love that about it's certainly as a content creator you have that sort of those opportunities to do stuff like that. Like I've always used my channel to talk about different things, to do different things that aren't limited to comics as well, but are or more so different aspects of maybe the comic book industry. And I think that's important. I mean, being a part of it, calling it out if you have an issue with it, engaging with people is very important. I think if you can get these guys on your channels, or you can go to, I don't know, I'm an open guy, right? I'm a pretty
Right.
open guy in terms of, even as busy as I am, the 90 million things that I have going day to day, I try to make myself reasonably available to people. And most people that are dissenters, they don't hit me up. They don't contact me. I've talked about this from the political element, right?
Right.
And how people have asked me time and time again, hey man, when you do make national TV appearances, you do it on like more of that things that people would consider more right wing.
Right.
Why is that? And I'm like, it's not by design. They're just the only ones that offer me, right? If MSNBC hit me up, Huffington Post, or what have you, if they contacted me and said, we want you to be a part of a panel, I'd be there. But
Right.
they don't even ask me. So that's why I make myself available. And in all honesty, I do not accept every TV or interview appearance that I have, certainly from a political standpoint. For one, because I don't want to be pigeonholed, but for two, it's just I don't have enough time in the day to go everywhere. But in the same respects, there's a sector of people that I would love to engage with, because we're going to disagree with more often than not, each other more often than not. I have no problem, coming on your platform. If you follow me on Twitter, I say this all the time. I get in arguments with some blue check mark. I'm like, hey, I'll go to your platform. I'll go to your platform. Just let me know the time and date. Block. I'm like, what is this, man? Like, why even engage with me if that's the case? I try to make myself available. I've long said, there's writers that I rag on. I think Kelly Thompson is the writer that I rag on the most in my videos. I've long said, if Kelly were to ever reach out to me in my email or anything and said, hey, I take maybe some issue with some of what you said, or I think you got it all wrong, I would schedule it that day. Like, I'd be like, let's come talk about it. Or maybe if she was like, I just want to talk to you on the phone. Cool, let's do it. Like, I'm not going to sit and plug my ears, right? And be like, la, 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 like, no, you're not arguing. Like, no, bro, that's not how adults handle things, in my honest opinion. I think definitely if you put yourself out there to have such a strong opinion about things, you have to be open to being criticized about it and engaging with people in certain conversations. You have to do that.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. And, and that's something like I've even tried to do here on my channel, even with like the fan war, like, we got like the fandom menace and everything out there. And, and you got the Raylo shippers and just all these different people, these different factions of fandoms. That's one thing I try to do is be open-minded to having conversations with things like that. And, some people are obviously more open to having those conversations. And I like to do that, kind of reach out to everybody, kind of interact with everybody, because not that I feel like I'm capable of helping bridge a gap, but I think maybe through what I'm doing, even if I don't get to talk to anybody, I can still help, just kind of help people have more of an understanding
Yeah.
through my platform and things like that. Like I'm not a part of the fandom menace, but I interact with a whole lot of those people.
Right.
And even at times I've been, have had people think that I was part of it and everything, and I make clear all the time, like I'm not that. They're cool. Like I have a lot of respect
For sure.
for a lot of the people there that interact with them. And to me, a part of that is because I want to, help like always have help people have an understanding of each other. And of course, one side don't want to have as much of an open mind to having those kinds of conversations.
For sure.
And that's just something that I like to do. And so, I mean, largely, I mean, and I've even said things about the Fandom Menace here on my channel, and talked and been critical of that as well. And I still haven't ever really received any hate from everybody in the Fandom Menace because, like I said, they're open to conversations, and
True.
I've largely been embraced by a lot of them. And some of that has to do with the fact that I get to be on Drunk 3PO, who's a member of the
Yeah,
Fandom
yeah, yeah.
Menace, and he's a great guy, and he reached out to me one day and asked me to come on his show, on the Some Black Guys and a Drunk that goes on Tuesdays. And so I was like, okay, I went on there, and like, I don't really follow like Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers or
Yeah.
Geeks and
Yeah.
Gamers and all that stuff. Like, and it's not that I have anything against any of them. It's just a lot of these channels, they don't make content that I like watching
Yeah,
regularly.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think that hurts anybody's feelings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it shouldn't.
And the thing is I kind of took that opportunity, like, yeah, I mean, maybe I can get people here and have a conversation. And largely it's been really good. I've had a great response, and even when I'm critical, I mean, nobody's out here like being assholes to me because I'm being critical. And I think that's one thing a lot of people think is, when they think of the Fandom Menace, or even just Jeremy or Geeks and Gamers, or even Drunk 3PO, just people just marginalize them in the same way. And it's like these people are okay. Like sometimes, yeah, we all put on a little bit of personas and kind of church it up a little bit, but largely, I mean, we're just here having conversations, and there's really no point in like just be open to conversations. And that's why I've kind of been out there interacting with these people to hopefully get more of an understanding of like who everybody is, and
Right.
also kind of help other people have open conversations, because for a lot of the things, like, people just don't want to have those conversations anymore. They're just like, okay, you're this way, I'm done. You associate with these people, I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yep.
And that comes
Yep.
with the same thing with like the blockchains and all that stuff too. It's like, I mean, really, and it comes back down to the fan thing again. Like, can we all just start with, we're fans of something?
True. Yeah, that would help us, right? That would bridge a gap, like, and that seems to maybe maybe these guys aren't actually fans, or they're in it to it for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? Is sort of the conclusion that I come to when I get people that react like that. It's like, dude, like if you're a fan as much as you say that you are, like, I feel like that's just such an irrational thing to get to the point to where you want. So it's like that blue haired weird old chick that
Yeah.
was talking down to me on Twitter, right? Like, and her whole persona is deplatform everybody that, and it didn't work to her advantage. I think she got off of that because she got caught with the block or the ban a lot of different times, the suspension. But it's like, it's like, all right, well, her approach is, I don't like what these guys got to say. I don't want to see what they say. I don't think they should even have a platform to say what they say.
Right.
That is not how rational people act. That is not how people that are actually traditional fans of whatever form of media react. That's irrational. That's not how rational people act. Like, that's okay. You would disagree with me. Like, so I'm gonna advocate that you are completely removed to the point to where I don't even see your opinion. You got the wrong opinion. I don't even want to see it. It's not enough for me to even block you. I want you gone. I don't want anybody else to see it. That is like, this is just irrational to me. That's completely irrational. But it lets me know that that person is into it for the wrong reasons. They are there to create echo chambers. They are there to hijack. They are there to make everything about what it is that they feel is their personal preference and go about their business. You know what I mean? And they don't want anybody that's on the opposite end of that, or even remotely critical of that tactic or that approach, to even have a voice, right? To maybe they don't want them to have the possibility of influencing other people, and that lets me know that they're into it for the wrong reasons.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, sometimes I just look at all this. I'm just like, man, where did this all go wrong? And it ultimately comes down to this whole fan war thing. Still comes down to politics, to something that
Yep.
happened back in 2016 when
Yep.
Trump got elected.
It sent them over the edge, man. Like I can pinpoint it, man. Like I don't know what it was, but once that happened, you saw everybody became not only more vocal about their politics, but people that were artists had to make sure that their art was reflected. I mean, dude, when I talk about Lois Lane issue number one, like that to me was the most pathetic issue number one that I've seen in recent years. When you take a character like Lois Lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hate Trump so much to where you literally take an MSNBC talking point, borders, concentration camps. I'm not even gonna try to be creative with it. I'm gonna put a character that is the White House press secretary that looks exactly like the current White House press secretary and Sarah Sanders. I'm gonna put her in the book and I'm gonna make Lois Lane grill her. Like, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
who does that? Like, that sends, and this is a person that is, historically has been a decent writer, right? And it's
Right.
like, that's what it did. It sent them over the deep end. Like, that to me is the problem with politics. Why my ultimate goal as a libertarian, I want to rid the world of it, because everything it touches turns to crap, man. And it brings the evil out of people, man. It really does.
Right. Yeah, it does. And yeah, I don't know. Again, it makes me, I don't know, it makes me sick. And sometimes it just makes me chuckle, the state of everything, Um, but anyway, it's been about an hour and a half, and I know you got a live stream you're getting ready to have here
Yeah, I got
here
another
in a
stream. Yeah, yeah.
couple more minutes. So go ahead, and I guess we'll get this all wrapped up. And it's been great having you on, man. I really
For
appreciate
sure.
you coming on, and
For sure.
hopefully we get to do this again soon.
Yeah, man, let's do it again. Appreciate it. I get you. Well, I get you on my channel as well. I think my audience will really love to hear your approach, man. But this is fun. I do appreciate you having me.
All right. Well, in case anybody's out there watching and don't know, you should go, if you're not already following YoungRippa59, you should go find him here on YouTube. Check out his content, one of my absolute favorite content creators. And I guess you could say an inspiration for me here at the channel. And again, thanks for being on. Thank you all for being here. You all have a good day. Later.